So my name is Andrew Perez, and I'm an online content manager here at Abacus Next. Thanks for signing up for our webinar, Calendaring in Abacus Law. It's our aim to share some tips and insights that will help you utilize Abacus Law to its fullest capabilities. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation using the chat panel. We'll answer your questions in the order that we get them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Ben Fu. Ben is Senior Training Specialist here at Abacus Next and knows the ins and outs of Abacus Law. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and hand it over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. Happy Friday to everyone. So for today, we have Intro to Calendaring. I'm assuming some of you have done some calendaring, hopefully, and if you haven't, here's the chance to, get some free training for today on Friday. Specifically, with regards to the training that we're going to go over today in the introduction to calendaring, I'm going to walk you through the rules-based calendaring that you can add at any given time from your calendar view. So you could do it from your calendar as well from a specific matter under the Events tab. So this is one way of doing it. You simply can right-click as long as you have your calendar open. I have my daily organizer. So how did I access that? You simply just click on your calendar, and this will be your pop-up window. At any given time, if you want to schedule something for a specific day that is based on the rules, you can right-click on the time you want to start that and add events from a rule. Okay? So within the events from a rule that you can actually add, of course, will be a series of rules that already have been created that could be there based on maybe some of the practice area legal solutions, also known as PALs, that you might have purchased. And that obviously those practice area legal solutions might be specific to your practice of law and services that you provide. So let's say there is a PI for personal injury. That personal injury practice area legal solution, or package as we like to call it, will have its own set of rules already provided. So if I were to type PI in here, then you'll get some of these rules that come along with that package that's been purchased by you. So you can see a personal injury case, a deposition, a record request, a response. So technically speaking, depending on the PAL that you've purchased, you might have different types of rules already. If you have multiple laws that you practice, then you will have, and you purchase the PALs, then you'll have definitely multiple rules. So for this one in particular, if you haven't seen what a rule is, basically I'm going to give one of these examples and want to walk you through an example of what contains within a rule. Okay. Normally speaking, once you go into this section, you'll be able to, at any given point, pick the rule that has already been created. Okay. So for now, you can simply just click on the one you would need, and it'll populate on the what. All right. Once it populates on the what as a rule, then that's how easy it is for you to set up an event and add it on and link it to a matter. Okay. So at any given time, you can link it to the matter, establish the who personnel, and then just like that, it will then fill in the rule, which is the what in this case, with all the specific events that are under it. Okay. Before we do this, though, I would like to show you where you control the rules and where you can see what rules you have within your Abacus. So you would go to File, Setup. You would go into Rules. Okay. And in here, each one of the firms that is being represented here, you guys can see the rules that will be available to you. So at any given point, if you wanted to take a look at a rule, again, we're going to go with my PI just to use as an example, and I pick injury case. Just to view it, you can simply just double click on it, and then you'll see what that rule is made up of. Okay? So in this instance, I'm going to walk through what a rule consists of. So you'll see a column here of all the events. You will see the what as to the specific event that's being added. the interval, which is going to be obviously the parameters of the in-between dates of the certain events, and how they're linked together by the relative number of events. So if I schedule something as a rule on a specific date, let's say the day is today, on that first day where it says 0-day intervals, you're going to day all these events 1 through 6 are going to be calendared on that same day with that rule that you chose. So you're going to do the fee agreement, get the client info, advise the client. If it was a PI case, check the statute of limitations. Every single one of these events all the way up to event number 5. Okay, as you do that, that's going to happen, of course, on that particular day, on that same day that you schedule it in your calendar. 7 days after that, you will draft the demand letter and mail it, of course. Then 30 days of event number 6, in this case, so event number 6 is when you draft the demand. So this is obviously, let's say it was today. Today's June 2nd. 7 days later will be June 9th. So 30 days after June 9th, right, because this will fall on June 9th, then you'll be doing, on July 9th, you'll probably be doing get the final medical special information. So this is the concept behind it. Of course, you have the interval between the days, and it's referencing what and in relative to what event. So given that that's the case, this is how your rules will function. At any given point, we can modify these rules, okay? But normally speaking, if you are to do that, we highly recommend that you first take a look at all the rules that are there, see which one is the one that you can base your modifications off of, because you could create your own from scratch, or you could have used one of these and let's say add a reminder. But if I wanted to do that, instead of using the original that's there, you're better off first cloning it, and that's what we recommend for everyone to do for various reasons, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But you would clone it, enter the new rule name. So let's say I want to call this PI, and I'm going to call this test, right? And then see how it's PI test already, PI testing, it comes through. Now I can go in here, and actually there was a PI test already. I tell you because I didn't let me finish creating it. So let me delete this and just recreate it just for you. So let's go again. I'm going to grab my PI. Let's go to PI again. Okay, my PI case, injury case, that's the one I want to clone. So you have to give it a very unique name so it really distinguishes it from everything else. So again, I want to call this PI test. Okay, this is just the rule name. In other words, this section here. You have a limit of characters that you can add up to. I think it's 8, I believe. You would hit done. And again, PI test is already there, but you would then put the actual name of the description. Well, in this case, would be PI testing. Okay, so after that comes through, this is where you can start doing your cloning. So if I go into, and I want to clone this rule, I want to make modifications to it, I can always click on the add button. So if I were to say, okay, in this case, I just want to add a new event where it's simply just a reminder. So let's say I wanted to add a what as a reminder. Okay, I have to create one if it's not there. And let's say that the reminder that I want is simply get a reminder to get the final medical and special information. So technically speaking, this is going to be 30 days of event number 6. So it's 30 days after you do the draft demand letter. So if you want to be reminded that you're still going to get the medical and special information, so we can actually go in here and create a reminder as a what, and put it maybe 10 days after event number 6. So the way you would do it is first go into the what. Okay, let's see if there's a reminder one. For that, I have, it looks like there's several reminder ones that are already in place. Okay, it looks like there is one to get medical records, which I've already created. If that one wasn't created, which I did already, you can always add one and create one yourself with the exact what that you want to create so that it includes it in the rule. So remind to get medical records has been created already, again, as part of the section, but you can simply hit on add and create a new what, and that new what will then be available here in the what section. So I'm going to highlight this. I created my reminder for medical records. Then I go into relative to what event. I'm seeing here that the event that I want is after the draft demand letter and mail, or I could say easily after event, as of event number 7, right? Because I wanted it to be certain days before event number 7, or I can say certain amount of days after I draft the demand letter. Either way, you have to choose the relativity to that event. So let's choose event number 7, right, in this case. So you put event number 7. Days before, as far as the interval, so 7, whatever this is going to fall on, whatever days it's going to fall on, right, event number 7, I want it, maybe get a reminder, let's say 5 days before, okay? So you can set up the reminder as to exactly that, to set up a reminder, and then it'll fall in. These sections here, if they were after the fact, then you would leave, obviously you wouldn't use the negative, you would just leave the positive. And then if anything falls on the weekend, this is a section that you can use for your options. So it says move weekend date to, right? I have my system options already set up, which means that I can go over that a little bit later on for all my calendaring purposes. But every time you're setting up a calendar in this rule, you can say if something falls on a weekend, let me know on a Friday, okay? Since it's a reminder that I'm setting up, and maybe that's what I want to do, I can check Friday, this instance. But if I already have that preset in my system options on my settings, which I'll show you later on, then that means I don't have to obviously change this. Let's stay consistent in this instance for this demo and say use system option settings. Okay? So once I hit done, okay, you'll see that the reminder is being added and is relative to event number 7. Event number 7 is get the info. So whenever this day is going to fall on, 5 days before that is going to give me a reminder to get the medical records. So in essence, this rule that we're creating can be modified at any given point by, of course, whoever's putting the rule together. And when you're done with it, that is just one modification that you did. That might be the slightest of modifications you need to do, but at any given time, you could add more reminders or whatever it is, the workflow that you want to establish. This is not only used for admin purposes or civil procedures. This can be obviously workflow purposes that you can always add events from a rule. As long as you have the list of events, you can do that. One other thing that I wanted to add, we have actually a new feature now going forward, is you can determine the who or who's supposed to be taking care of it when you're scheduling it in the calendar. So you have the section on the who. You can just double click on it. That detail of the event, of the who, in other words, whose calendar is going to show up under, right? You can choose the who in that case, whether you're taking specifically, depending on the size of your firm, you can pick a specific who code. In other words, one of you as individuals, right? You have your initials, so you can assign it to them all the time, the same concept. Or if it's a little bit more general, maybe based on, who is the attorney handling it, you can maybe put an attorney as to whoever is going to be responsible for that task, for that event as a reminder, or maybe a paralegal, or maybe a consultant, okay? You have those abilities to set all this up as long as you have someone already linked as an attorney to the matter, and of course you would have that. That's always the case. You always have the lead attorney. And of course, maybe a paralegal that's already part of the process. Specifically in the PI screen, you would have already a paralegal assigned to anything related with a personal injury. If these fields don't exist within the matter, depending on the case that you're using, in this case PI has it again, but family law might not have it. So you might have to create a field, add it to the matter screen of your family law matter screens, and then from there you can use it. Otherwise, you are good to go with specific who codes and assign them individually. So right now, within this fee agreement, if I wanted to add the who code to, let's say, BD, and I can click done, done, and then just like that, whenever I create and use this specific rule, that specific event is going to be calendared or scheduled under BD's calendar. So you could do that for all these, or you could be more specific and just put, general, I should say, and do attorney, a paralegal, consultant, whatever the case may be. So these are the kind of things that you can set up in the rule. And this rule in the PI testing, I just did that. Once you go back in here, and you were to choose then add events from a rule, and I did add PI testing, the one that I just added. I got to go PI test, which will give me the one I just created. You see that? Oh, and again, let me just pause for a minute. Every time that you want to modify a rule, or I should say any rule that you want to create, we suggest that you clone it. The reason for it is because obviously we have a unique name and you'll know exactly which one it is. But also, if you modify the original that we have in store, and we end up doing any upgrades to our versions or any updates, it'll completely erase and it'll override what you already had. So that's why we always encourage everyone to clone any of our rules and make so that you can obviously work off of that and have it as long as you do any modifications to it. If you don't mind doing any modifications and you like everything as it is, then of course you can use those. But we recommend for you to clone it. Okay? So let's pick my PI test here. And then on the who and the old people, depending on how, if you have preset it where each event had a who, then obviously you don't need to worry about the all people section here because everything's preset. If you haven't preset anything and you haven't used that who section in the rules, then you can actually have up to 4 people here where you can add, let's say you wanted all of them to see every single one of those events in a rule. If it's more than 4 individuals, then you would have to create a work group. So you have your choices. There's 2 ways of doing this. You can preset everything under the rules with the right who code, or you can come in here, have that every single one of those events show up in each one of these 4 individuals that you're going to put in the who. Okay? And then you can actually alter this later on. Let me just show you really quick. I put those 4 individuals there. I will link it to a matter. So let's say this is Cox. Okay, simply that I'm linking to a matter because obviously you want to keep track as much as you can of, every single event on the matter that you're linking into. And then you would just hit save. So the end result of this is it's going to give a pop-up saying you are scheduling an event that is associated with a rule. Do you want the related event schedule? My answer obviously is going to be yes because that's exactly my intention. So whenever anything falls on a specific holiday or Independence Day, it's going to prompt you. Please enter your preferred date. Let's say it falls on Tuesday and it's a holiday. If you don't mind showing up on that day, you can leave it as such. If the Independence Day, obviously you're going to be, you're not going to be at work on that Monday, right? Or that Wednesday, and you actually want to get notified before then you might have to move this to that Friday before, or so that might be June 30th. So you move it to June 30th, you would hit done, and then this is what shows up as my version, right, under my calendar. So all of these events are being calendared. Notice that the sole one that I actually make the who as BD, it goes straight to that person. Then everything else falls into everyone else's calendar. So not only is it attached to the matter, as such, every single event under the matter, but it also showing up in each one of these individuals' calendar. Because I have preset BD, and this is what the power of the rule is, I just wanted to show you that if it's always going to be consistent, where the same person is always going to do the same fee agreement, then you should preset it in your rules. So that way you don't have to put anything on the who. If I would have left the who blank, then obviously you should have all the who's set up properly in the rule set. Okay? So when I hit done, look what happened, and I hit done again. Look how this reminders filled up all, because every single one of those events that as we went over, remember the one that had 0 days, they're all showing up here. Okay? As we go along, if I wanted to see a better breakdown of this, I can go into my matter Cox. Okay, my matter is called Cox. And if I go to my events tab, then you will see, notice how this is new case. This is completely different and new case. So disregard that. It puts it in chronological order. The ones that I'm looking for is the rule called PI test. Okay? See how every single one of these events is June 2nd? Because like I said, it was events 1 through 6. You remember that? they were all on June 2nd. Then he said 2 days later, or whatever the case may be, this actually is a new case, so it was, I think, 3 days, a week later, it was draft demand letter. Recall that? And then we did the reminder to get medical records. That's the one I created, and it put it, of course, 5 days. What was it? Sorry, it was 10 days or 5 days prior to the reminder to medical records. Because remember, it fell on the weekend of July 4th. So this was July 9th. 5 days before was July 4th, and it prompted me, and I moved it to that Friday before. So that's why it's showing up as June 30th. So this is the power of the rules. Of course, everything is pre-programmed, preset on those rules. Those rules have events that are related to one another. They're linked to one another, separated by intervals, and this is how all get scheduled. Now you'll have all of these events, right, listed under your matter, but it's also going to be listed under the calendar for each one of these individuals that appears on the whole. Okay, so having said that, now if I wanted to close out of this, right, and see it then, of course, if I wanted to see on my monthly view, you can always go into monthly view, and then you can see the breakdown here. If we start with June 2nd, everything that has PI test, right, you have this little arrow. When you hit the drop down, it takes you straight to that date, okay? Going back, if we go to July 9th, right, there's the demand for Cox Rojas. If we go to the reminder that we were talking about that was in June 30th, is down here on Cox Rojas. So you can see. I don't know if you guys are aware, another tip within your dates that you have here, these can be moved around under the month view and weekly view. So if I go into Tyler here and I wanted to move this to, let's say, this is a completely different event, right? I'm moving it to Friday. When I do that, as long as that, and this is the example that I'm trying to show you, as long as that event is related or is part of a rule, it'll say, do you want to update the related events, if any? So when you're changing the date and you do want to do that, you can say yes. If it belongs to a series of events that are subsequent to it after the fact and can be affected by it, it'll prompt you every single time whether that date needs to be changed. So you're going to say yes to just one, or you're going to say yes to all. More than likely, you're going to say yes to all of them, right? So then it recalculates everything because you moved that date, and it puts everything in its respective dates that it should be based off of that rule that you used, okay? So there's different ways of doing that. You can click moving along. When you're in the day section here, obviously I'm going to go back to June 2nd. You can just grab a reminder and put it into the things to do. That's different. That's just changing the actual date within the month view and the week view. Other concepts that I like to discuss within calendaring, okay, besides the rules, is the system options. So if I go to File, Setup, we talked about the system options when it comes to calendaring. There's a section here that it says the events landing on the weekends. You have to adjust it to, and you can have these configurations. Remember in the rule when I was setting up that reminder, that I want to go by what the system options I was using, and this is what I was referring to. Okay. Right now, my system options is that whenever it falls on a weekend, do I put it on a Monday or Friday, or do I ignore it? Right now, if I would have clicked on Use System Options, which I did, I'm ignoring it. I'm okay with the event falling on the weekend. However, if it were a reminder, right, it says here, move the reminders to Friday. Since I did set up a reminder, if it fell on a weekend, it would have been moved to a Friday. So this is where you can have control over that, and that's just the system settings across the board for all your events that you're calendaring. When I go back to my calendar, I want to show you another few features with regards to just moving things around in your calendar if you haven't done this before. So simply put, any reminder that you have, okay, at any given time, all the reminders, by the way, will have the @ here in this section empty. That's how you know, without even looking that it's being set in the reminders, that if the @ is empty is a reminder. But let's say I wanted to book this, and change instead of all people, just have one person be responsible for it. At any given time, you can do that as long as the person is obviously within the individuals that you're choosing. Let's say Chris Park, right? You could have chosen from here. And then let's say you want to allot this time for him to take care of this at 1 p.m. Actually, let's make this not 1 p.m., but let's make this 3 p.m. Okay? And let's say it's going to take him an hour, and I want to block an hour so that he has it in his calendar to do this. And what is it that he's doing? Obviously, he's going to plan the confirmation from the hearing. So I can simply just hit save. And once I do that, look what happens. It's going to move it from here. You're going to hit done again. It'll move the hearing from this section all the way down, okay, to my 3 p.m. and block it for me. And that's great because now CP can be in charge of handling it. So it goes from being on a reminder, from everyone seeing it on their calendars, to CP handling on his own. Right now, the view that I have is all people. But if I had only viewing instead of all people's calendars, I was just viewing, let's say, Chris Park's calendar, then obviously it's going to give me anything that he's responsible for. So now he can see it. Okay? Let's say that someone delegated that to CP. CP says, great, I had the best of intentions of doing this, okay? But he can't get to it at that time, and now he wants to move it instead of from his actual time at 3 p.m., he just wants to move it over to a things to do so that he can then maybe, if he doesn't complete it at the end of the day, he can then finish it tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is Friday, so that's a little tricky, right? But regardless, it'll move it to the next business day for him to do. So simply, if you want to turn an appointment into a things to do or a reminder into a things to do, all you really got to do is put TO-DO. And now that will move. It'll still remain linked to the same matter. You'll move it to save, done, and it'll move it from here into your things to do. The main difference between a things to do and a reminder is simply that a thing to do will continue to roll over into the next day until it's marked done. Okay? And how do we mark something done? You simply just highlight it, right? Then you just right-click and you can mark done. Once you finish something in the things to do, what it'll simply does is it removes it from this list, but it still will remain attached to the matter as being completed. Okay? So again, I can hit mark done. I would hit done, and it'll remove it here from things to do. And then if I wanted to check under my matters, I can go check under my matters and see if it's there and complete it done. So if I go, I think it was Rodriguez. I want to say it was Paul. And when I double click on it, I'm going to go into my events tab. And today, I believe it was today, so I'll scroll a little bit down. There it is. You see how I marked it BD? You can't see it, but if I move to the right a little bit, it should say, where's my column? Done. Oh, sorry, that's not the one then. It must have been one of these at the top. One of the ones that says mark done. Either D, I can't remember which one it was. But it marks it done, and it keeps track of it here within my file of who marked it done. So it keeps track of the who. If you need to make edits to it by any chance, just double click on it. It's easy enough. If something is still N and you want to mark it done within here, you don't even have to be in the calendar. If someone finished it, you could also do it from this section. So if I didn't do it and someone else did it, right? Let's say CP did this, and they went to their status and they marked it done. That same way, this will also disappear from wherever in the calendar it fell on, and it'll say who completed it, and you'll be able to keep track of who filed the motion. So there's different ways to go about where you can edit the information, where you can mark it done from. Obviously, if you're in your calendar view here, and you use this much, you could do it through this section. If you're more the type that gets matter-centric and likes to see everything within the matter, you could do it then as well. Okay. The reminders, they don't move over to the next day. So if you don't complete them, they stay there. And most people, what they like to do is, if they can't finish all the reminders, so you simply move them over by putting to do here. And that will move it to the next day if they don't finish it by the end of the day. So if I hit done, it moves it down here. And if I don't get it done by today, it'll move it to Monday. And then on Monday, you would get a list of things to do here that you didn't finish up. Are there any questions? Open it up. See how many questions we've had so far.
All right, Ben. So,
okay, let me read through a few of these and go from there. Let's see what we have so far.
So first one is, I've created specific rules for our different type cases, but I can't change the rule description when I've cloned a rule. How can the rule description be updated/revised?
Okay, so you're saying that you've created specific rules for different type cases, but you can't change the rule description. Well, you should have done it at the beginning prior to making that change. So let's see if you've created already. Let's go back in there. So under your rules, you're telling me that you had, if you were able to clone it, the key here has to be that you were able to clone it first, and then at any given point you can edit it. So like the one on PI testing, okay, testing for training, this one, PI testing. If I wanted to edit it, and you're talking about the name version here, so yeah, unfortunately, you can just clone this one. I would clone it. This would be my train of thought. You clone whatever you created, and you call it by the new name. So if I were to call this, okay, PI, and I'm just going to put dash food, right? And now I want this one done, and then I'm going to, obviously, food, and that's just my last name there. I can hit done, and simple like that, I'm calling this PI food testing. You're changing the name of it, right? So now you have your new name that you wanted. So after that, go back to the old one, and then you could delete it. And then because you cloned it before, then you can have that name in there, please. Yes, I give it a new name, but the old rule description still shows up. Just try what I just did, right? You take the old one, clone it, call it a new, whatever new name you want, right? And put the description that you want. Unique name, it has to be a different name. Then after that, just do what I did. Just delete the old one and keep the new one. Must system options changes be done by the supervisor only, or can I make the changes if I'm not the supervisor? Well, that question has to do with whether or not they've given you access to make those system option changes. So your administrator has the power to control that. They can give you permissions and have access to system options and do edits that way or not, or maybe the administrator has to do it on their own. Okay, that looks like it, unless there are any other questions.
All right, folks, if there aren't any other more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our training. Also keep in mind that there is a more extensive training available, premium content available on abacus.com/webinars. I encourage you to go ahead and check out our slate schedule of webinars for the month of June. There's some great stuff for just short pre-training Fridays, and then some paid premium content with one of our AbacusLaw experts.
you.